Where are you from, Tony?
What the fuck difference does it make where I'm from, man?
Now boarding.
EasyJet 345 traffic 2 mile, final without delay, cross runway 30 left, runway 30 right, clear for takeoff.
Well, good morning, my Everett friends. Today is April the 4th, and this message is being pre-recorded. What I have here today is I've isolated 4 different speakers from the hearing up on at the statehouse regarding the soccer stadium. And let me see if I have a copy also of the bill. It's taken me a little while to find my way around the software on this this platform, Yardstream it's called. So bear with me. Okay. And there's a look at the bill. Of course, it was sponsored by Senator Sal DiDomenico. And I encourage you to read through it. It's a little bit dry, like all legislation is. However, you know, it's one thing it drives home that I think some people are missing is the fact that this bill pertains only to the contingency that a soccer stadium is built. In other words, it's not a consideration to remove the designated port authority and then just open the field to other possible industries that might want to use that portion of land. So it's written into it that it's specifically targeting the creation of the soccer stadium. It also gives in the second paragraph a little bit of, let me see if I can get to that. Tells you a little bit about what happens if they don't build. And although I'm not an expert on this stuff and just a layman, it appears to me that they have 5 years to make a break and come across and build the stadium once this bill is enacted or passed, I should say. So I'm not sure if I'm interpreting correctly, but it seems like that the Kraft Group pretty much has carte blanche to make a break it within 5 years without any competitive industry or any worries. And they could walk away from this after 5 years with no stadium built if the other hurdles are not crossed. Anyways, without droning on too much further, I have the 4 statements here. Ms. Paula Sterite gave an articulate statement opposing the passage of this bill and the building of the stadium. And we also have Katy Rogers, Councilwoman Katy Rogers, who gave a straightforward, articulate pitch. It was in favor. She focused on the preservation and the adherence to Chapter 91, which is something I might be able to cover later on. The following video after that is Senator Sal DiDomenico, of course, the sponsor of the bill. And as a side note, I'll tell you that there seemed to be some audio problems at the statehouse end of things. It seemed, I don't know whether the microphone was just very sensitive or what have you, but I apologize for the erratic fluctuation in the volume there. So let's take a look at this stuff and see what you think. Well, I'm going to hopefully invite Ms. Sterite to join me online and discuss some of the issues. And maybe we'll even extend an invitation out to Senator Sal, see if he wants to counterpoint any of the contentions of the opposing residents. So without any further mention, let me bring Paula's bit up right now.
Good afternoon, Paula Sterite. Thank you for the opportunity to provide feedback on this important issue today, and I hope additional hearings are held in Everett and similar to what was held in the past by the Mass Gaming Commission and most recently by the DPU. I'm here today as an Everett resident who has lived in Everett for close to 40 years. I oppose this bill and any bill that names one specific company or person and limits what can be built or developed here or anywhere. I believe in competition, and limiting what this port and land can be used for will limit the benefits and opportunity to Everett and the surrounding cities. It is interesting to read and see the mayor concerned about the loss of millions in revenue, as residents have voiced their concerns for years, as he supported and pushed for the majority of commercial property to be converted to luxury residential apartments. Don't be fooled by the aerial view of the site. If you want the whole picture, I ask you to have your staff randomly take snapshots of Google Map or Google Earth to see the traffic jams on all the major roads leading in and out of Everett throughout the day. It's horrible. Everett has gone from a livable and affordable community with pride in family and community to a city that is practically unlivable, with residents dealing with daily traffic jams and daily crisis. The city has become unaffordable to the average blue-collar worker. Many seniors have been forced to make major changes in their daily lives to be able to afford to stay in Everett, and many have sadly been forced to leave. The city of Everett is 3.5 square miles, with about a third being zoned for commercial property. Years ago, Everett was a city that had a strong commercial base with businesses that offered the community good-paying jobs with a strong commercial tax base. Everett had the luxury of being ahead of its time, where you could live, work, and play. Constellation Energy is the largest taxpayer in Everett. Their taxes have gone from over $15 million a few years ago to dwindling to a few $100,000 this year. Besides tax revenue, Constellation offered good union-paying jobs with little or no demand on traffic, parking, or demand on our public safety. And like it or not, was a safety net to provide reliable energy to Massachusetts. Everett needs businesses that will offer residents good-paying jobs. The jobs at the casino and the proposed stadium are and will be low-end service jobs. We got fooled once by the Win for All campaign for the casino. We won't be fooled again with the promises of how good the stadium is for Everett. I asked this committee to allow the free market to compete for this waterfront. I do find it strange that with the state that's looking to be a leader in clean energy, the wind turbine isn't included in the discussion for the waterfront. It was good enough for Cape Cod, New Bedford, and Salem. Why not Everett? The International Energy Agency predicts that global offshore wind will become a $1 trillion business by 2040. In the United States, it's projected to be a $25 million business by 2030. Will a stadium come close to these numbers? If you want Everett to have a chance to be affordable and livable again, I ask you to vote no on this bill. Everett deserves better. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Manuel Teshi? Okay. Justin Perry?
So sorry, he's manual testing here.
Okay.
This Paula articulate as usual. So as I said, she has agreed to meet me online at some point in the future, and we'll kind of take a look, in particular, at the statements by Senator Saldi and the statements by the mayor. Maybe kind of pick that apart a little bit and see what the nuts and bolts are in their prepared remarks. Next up, we have Katy Rogers, who, as I said before, she did a pretty straightforward approach and was focused on Chapter 91, which is the preservation of the DPA, the designated Port Authority status, that protects it environmentally from any kind of development and what have you, which of course necessitated this piece of legislation. So let's go ahead, and I apologize for any logistical problems they have here. I'm just getting used to this software, and hopefully it'll be a useful vehicle to the Everett Reporter trilogy pages and the public in general. One thing that was glaringly obvious in the hearings leading up to the casino was that the community was promised input and what have you, but the big guys control the media, and the community's words were pretty much left by the wayside. All right, so and now here's Councilwoman Katy Rogers.
Katy Rogers?
Hello, Councilor Katy Rogers from Everett, Massachusetts. I'm here today to speak on behalf of our waterfront property. I am a fifth-generation Everett resident. I was recently elected to the city council, and throughout my whole life, we did not have any access to our waterfront property. In fact, I didn't even know it really existed. So throughout the years, there have been some recent developments which have engaged those areas. However, there are some missing components, and for far too long, Everett hasn't had a seat at the table in terms of development and opportunity. For far too long, we have been sort of a barren wasteland for things that Boston didn't want to take on. So we've always been sort of using our waterfront as a factory and industrial area, polluting our water. So it's only in recent years that we've had any access at all. And I want to ensure that any development that happens on that property is able to adhere to the guidelines of Chapter 91, and that we are able to develop that land for public use and have the same opportunities as all cities in Massachusetts. Thank you.
Any questions?
So there it was. As I said, Ms. Rogers was, quick, straightforward. It's pretty much dry stuff about Chapter 91. Clearly she is in favor, with the caveat that contingency that Chapter 91 is observed, and the public has access to the end product, in terms of being a park or the walkways and the easements, all those good things. Okay, and so next up is Senator Saldi, and again, I remind you that the audio fluctuations there were on the, at least it's a product of the video that I downloaded of the House hearing. So I have no control over it, and it's a little bit erratic, but the senator made his points, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Chair Feingold, Chair Paracella, members of the committee. As you all know, I have filed this bill, and I have filed this bill for several reasons. And I wanted to make them clear for people here and back at home to understand why this legislation is deeply needed for my community to grow, to succeed, to continue the development that we have on our waterfront for the use of our public. And what you've heard from several folks from Everett is that our waterfront has been largely closed off for the public for decades. We have an expansive waterfront that many did not know even existed. And what we have today is an opportunity to right the wrongs of the past. Our community has been burdened by heavy industry for the entire region to benefit at the expense of my residents in the city of Everett. You have heard the industry has come in and overrun many of our pieces of land, polluted our land, polluted our water, polluted our air, and many people in that part of Everett, unfortunately, have been affected by a cancer cluster that has been there for decades because of heavy industry, who have largely packed up and left our communities and left us with these brownfields that, in my estimation, and not estimation, fact, that no one has come to our rescue to clean up these brownfields. So when you hear folks talk about making investments on our waterfront and talking about how they want to protect these assets, which I fully agree, I also wonder where they were when the time was for our community to right a wrong and clean up these brownfields. No one came to our rescue. No one was there by Everett's side to right the wrongs of what has happened to my community for decades. Now we have an opportunity to do it for ourselves with partners who are willing to come forward and invest a tremendous amount of money and resources to clean up a blighted piece of land, to put a development on this property that will have lasting impacts for my community, will have public benefits, will have open space, open up our waterfront, have water access, have transportation on our waterfront, and ensure that generations of our residents will no longer have to look at smokestacks as the gateway to our community. And it is important for us to also note that there is a tremendous amount of public engagement and process after this will hopefully be lifted. This is the first step. There is no second step to lifting a DPA. There is no second, third, fourth step without the process that we've laid out in front of you folks for legislative consideration. And it is my hope that you can see the situation that we're all in my community. The public will have plenty of opportunity to voice their views, to make suggestions. The process is very extensive, as we all know. Chapter 91, waterfront development, is in effect. We are not skirting any public process with this legislation. We are just saying, give us an opportunity to do what our community has been craving for a long, long time. Open access, waterfront access, cleaning up brownfields, and ensuring our residents have every opportunity that other communities have to enjoy their land and their city. So, you know, when I moved into the city of Everett, I didn't grow up in Everett. I grew up in Cambridge. But I chose to move to Everett and raise my family in Everett because of the community and what I saw as a place that I wanted to be a part of. And you're not going to find a more resilient community who has faced so many obstacles that were no fault of their own, that were just laid on our waterfront, on our land, and told to just deal with it because no one was speaking up. They targeted our community, and they knew that largely we weren't going to fight back because we didn't have the means to do so. We are an environmental justice community. I passed that bill to make sure that communities like my own have the opportunity to right those wrongs and speak up for themselves and have some say in what is actually happening in our community and not by other folks who have used us as a dumping ground, to be honest. And also, I will say the DPA, as it currently exists on our waterfront, is a very large DPA. We are just taking a very small section of that DPA, hopefully, out of this restricted area. There is ample space to do all the things that people are talking about on other parts of the DPA as well. So we're not taking the entire DPA away from this area. We can do both. We can clean up a dirty site, we can turn it into something beautiful for our residents, have open access for our residents, and also preserve the maritime use on other parts of this DPA. So the argument that we're taking away a DPA, in my mind, is why can't we find a solution and have both good things on our waterfront? That is a very simple argument to make and a very common sense approach to how we want to deal with cleaning up our land for our residents. So I would hope that this committee would act on this very soon. We want to start the process. We can't wait to get those smokestacks down. We can't wait to have this building that's been contaminated for decades off our waterfront and take away this dirty land that has been affecting our community in a negative way for so many years. So I implore you to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
And there was Sal D. Now, betting and cleanup, we have the mayor of Everett, Carlo DeMaria. His entourage, I believe Mr. J. Monty and Mr. Matt Latanzi, who apparently were there only for decoration because they never said a word. And it was quite noticeable or interesting that the mayor busted through every time limitation of 3 minutes that was the request of the speakers. I wonder if he will remember that when he's sitting in the school committee hustling people along on their comments. He seemed to take great liberty with it. But then again, the rules are for thee and not for me. Okay, so here is Carlo DeMaria, who threw everything possible he could against the wall, hoping something would stick. And let's have it.
Mayor DeMaria.
Good afternoon, Chairman Feingold, Chairman Paracella, and committee members. I'm joined today with Matt Latanzi, Director of Economic Development, and Jay Monty, our Transportation Planner here in the City of Everett. My name is Carlo DeMaria, and I have the honor of serving as the Mayor of the City of Everett. I'm appearing before you today to offer my support for Senate Bill 2692. There are some people who would lead you to believe that this bill is about a soccer stadium, or that it's about being driven by a professional sports organization, but that is misleading. This legislation is about the financial harm that Everett is already suffering from the dwindling value of an outdated environmental nuisance. The need for this legislation began over 3 years ago when representatives from Constellation Energy, formerly Exelon, informed me that their site in Everett essentially was going out of business. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission had ruled that the remaining stations 8 and 9 of the former Mystic generating site will not be needed to supply energy to the grid as of May 2024. As a result, Everett will lose $55 million in tax revenue between fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 26 due to the loss of value from this parcel. We have already lost $28 million since the TIF expired in fiscal year 20. We need this legislation to help pull Everett back from the harm this loss of revenue is causing our community. Because we are already losing revenue, we can't afford to wait several years under the coastal zone management process for a new use. That's what this legislation is about. It's about our community. I think it's important that you know more about Everett when you are considering a bill that is so important to us. We are a comparatively small community, but what we lack in real estate, we make up for in pride. We have families that have lived here for generations, who are struggling to keep their homes. And we are one of the communities that continues to attract new residents because of the diversity that flourishes in our neighborhoods. Our residents are hard-working people. Many work multiple jobs to make ends meet. They rely on public transportation. The food pantry we still operate well past the worst days of the pandemic continues to be relied upon as a source of relief. Some of our older residents tell me that the senior meal delivery program that the city still runs is the only reason they are able to eat multiple meals each day. When I talk about the loss of revenue and the need for this legislation, those are the real problems that we are trying to solve with this bill. If you look around at the communities surrounding Everett, they have experienced a massive amount of new growth and development. It's true that a picture can be worth 1,000 words. That's our waterfront. And look across and look at Boston's waterfront, and Somerville's waterfront, and Cambridge. And that's ours. It's pretty obvious in the images I brought with me today that the skylines of our neighbors clearly show the disparities that exist between the opportunities other cities have enjoyed while Everett is still fighting to emerge from its former industrial past. Everett needs the same opportunity to redevelop this area that surrounding communities have already enjoyed, like the Seaport in Boston, Assembly Row in Somerville, and Kendall Square in Cambridge. What we are asking for is economic equity for our environmental justice community so that we can get rid of the dirty industrial uses that we have had to live with for too long, and the chance to bring in desperately needed new growth. We also need this legislation because the history of my hometown has shown that it takes well-financed private interest to clean up former industrial sites that need costly environmental remediation. The former Monsanto chemical plant.
Mayor, if you could consider.
We're going to speak for the six, right, the three of us.
Okay, okay.
I'll take it the whole 6 minutes. Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I'm a little, I
Okay.
spent a lot of time writing this, and
Okay.
I
Please
just
continue.
wanted to give you a clear picture of why this is so important.
Okay.
The former Monsanto chemical plant was a perfect example. The site sat vacant for decades. The federal government didn't come clean it up. The Commonwealth didn't have the funds to clean it up. We absolutely had no way for Everett to clean it up. It sat empty for 5 decades, 50 years almost, maybe even longer. A private company had to come in and spend $1 billion to do that. We are facing the same situation with this parcel of land. The only hope that Everett has to clean up this site is for a private developer to come in and pay for that to work. And the DPA restrictions hurts our chances for that. The DPA restriction requires waterfront areas to be used for commercial purposes in maritime commerce, which are projects that are industrial in nature. Everett has borne the burden of industrial uses long enough. These uses restrict public access to waterways, and that goes against the work that Everett has done with the key environmental stakeholders to increase public recreational access to the Mystic and Malden rivers. To be clear, this bill seeks to remove the DPA restriction for this parcel for a specific limited scope. This bill was not filed with the intention of denying our residents or other interest parties the opportunity to have a say in the future of this site because all those opportunities will still exist. At the local level, this project will still require site plan review before our planning board. This is a public process. At the state level, the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act, or the MEPA review process, will be triggered. The public comment periods under Chapter 91 of the Public Waterfront Act will apply. Public notice and comments are mandatory for licensing of any project on tidelands, including filled tidelands. Non-water dependent projects also require a public hearing. I would argue that this legislation and the potential to introduce a less commercial and industry-based use increases the ability to expand public access to a revitalized waterfront area. And while a cleaner, more accessible waterfront is a significant benefit of this bill, this is not the only positive outcome. This bill will give Everett the chance to remove one of the last pieces of our outdated industrial past. It will bring in new jobs for our residents. It will give us the chance to try and leverage private development to help the Commonwealth advance public transportation that will have a regional benefit that extends beyond the borders of Everett. And so, I'm here today asking for your favorable consideration of this bill. I'm asking for this bill so that an actual proposal for a project can be introduced and vetted with multiple opportunities for public comment during state and local review. I'm asking for this bill to be able to prevent the crippling loss of revenue from the power plant from doing further harm to our residents. The residents of Everett have waited long enough. Please don't ask us to put our future and the well-being of our residents on hold any longer. And I understand I only had 5-6 minutes. I could go on, and I could speak a little more about the city of Everett and the needs of our community. I think you all know we're a gateway city, we're an EJ community, we're the only city in the inner core not connected by transit. We're the first city to put bus lanes in. You know, I'm looking to bring the Silver Line in, commuter rail stops, the pedestrian footbridge over Assembly Road. With the development of this site, we can leverage all those things to help our community grow. Build more housing for our residents, build some affordable housing for my kids, my children who are 25, who are struggling trying to find a home, right? Those are the things that we want to do in the city of Everett. We have lots and lots of land in this area. I implore you all to come to the city of Everett and check out this area. There's about 300 to 400 acres of land between Exxon, the power plant, District-Gas, National Grid, Sprague sites, all empty parcels of dirty industrial lands that's just sitting on the waterfront that should be and could be redeveloped. And we're going to leverage this development to build that transit, to encourage more development to come to our city. Harvard Kennedy School did a study on this area. You should look at that study if you can. I can get it to you all. I would love to meet you all there at the site if you want to tour the area to get familiar with this site. But we're just asking, you can do it, right? This body can do it. You can remove this site from DPA to allow us to really move our city forward.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the time. I'm sorry for taking too
No,
much
no,
time,
Mayor,
you know?
listen, we understand. We understand. Any questions for the mayor?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate your passion. There's been some discussion about whether or not a soccer stadium is the best use for that site. Could you explain why you think that would be the best use for that site?
I think it's going to take someone well-financed to be able to clean that site up. And, you know, I think you looked at the former Monsanto site. They spent $100 million to clean the site up. You're probably looking at similar cleanup costs at this site. So I've talked to people in the housing business. I've talked to people in, you know, commercial office space and lab and tech and all that. They just say the ROI is not there for them. It's not something that it's doable. Just to clean that up, to go through the process, but to get it cleaned up, it's not feasible, especially for housing and no one, you know. So that's the biggest reason. I feel that if you know, I mean, you have someone like, you know, Steve Wynn, right, who came in, or the Wynn team, they came in, they ROI, they could do it, right? They could spend $100 million to clean up the Monsanto chemical plant. They could, because they were gonna run a different type of business. This is that same thing. I feel that you know, there's no other industry that's gonna come here, it's gonna spend that money to clean that up, and you know, a soccer stadium that's gonna hold concerts and have the venue space to do many other things. Will have the resources and the ability, and they're well financed, right? They can get it done. They get it cleaned up and build something that's going to be beautiful. And no parking. There's no parking spaces. I told them, no. If we go forward, there'll be no parking there. We're gonna rely on public transit. We're gonna build out the transportation system, and how I'm gonna leverage that to build a transit system, so then I can leverage the rest of the city. So we can build more housing with zero parking. Right, we can get residents using bus lanes to run bus lanes on Rutherford Ave, to connect Everett to the Silver Line. Connect Everett to I'm trying to go quick here. Connect Everett to, you know, North Station with a turnaround at Haymarket. You know, Secretary Paula told me a long time. Think out of the box, right? If you put bus lanes on Broadway, Everett, you can do them on 99, Melrose and Malden, and you can bring them up to Route 1. You can take thousands of vehicles off the roads, off the Tobin Bridge, and bring them into Boston on buses. We have to connect to Boston. This is what we're going to do. I mean, and we're going to do it with a developer who's going to have to spend the money to improve that area, right? I mean, you have Encore that owns the land. They're involved in this. You know, we're going to leverage that to get this, you know, to get this site cleaned up. I mean, no one else is going to do it. Mark my words. I've been born and raised in Everett. I drove by the Monsanto site my whole life. 50 years, 60 years, empty, dirty, contaminated. Nobody wanted that site. Was beautiful on the water, right? No one ever came to me and said, I want to build some housing there. I want to build some office buildings there. Nothing. No one ever came to the city. I've been mayor now for 17 years, 16, 17, since 2008. Nobody ever talked about the Monsanto chemical plant. No one, no one's talking about reusing the power. No one's come to me and said, hey, we'd be interested, because people come to the mayor all the time, interested in different sites. No one has ever come to me and said, oh, this contaminated power plant, this is a good location for our, new office building. You know what I mean? There's no transit that connects there. So I mean, everyone talks about, like, we've negotiated no deal with the crafts yet, right? This right today, as you know, I just want to remove this from DPA, so then I have the ability to entertain a proposal. And yes, they want to build a site there, and I'd like to see them build a site there, but it's not going to be a cakewalk. It's not going to be like, oh yeah, here you go. No, you're going to have to invest in public transit. We're going to connect this site to the city of Boston. I want a one-seat ride into Boston.
Thank you, Mayor.
And then we can, with the Exxon sites, another 100 acres, right? And you have all these different sites that we're going to be able to really connect the city of Everett to Boston and change that.
Any other questions, panel?
Did I answer your question okay?
Yeah,
I think you did. We're joined by Vice Chair Var.
And there you have it. Hooked on phonics. Thank you, Mayor Carlo DeMaria. Well, hopefully this was of some use to you, and I'm able to put it together and get it uploaded for your pleasure. We will endeavor to use this platform to bring you, much timely information as we possibly can. As I mentioned at the beginning, look forward to having Paula Sterite join me online, and we're going to take apart these statements a little bit, including her own. And if that bears some fruit, maybe we'll even try to convince Senator Sal to join me online and defend some problems that the residents cite as definitely going to arise out of putting a soccer stadium down there on the riverfront. So I hope you enjoyed this. So until next time, friends, Godspeed, good luck, and keep your cameras rolling if you get anything that you think is worthy. gmail.com, and we'll be looking for you soon. Take care.
Now you know the rest of the story.